Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen. This week we are ranking Jason Voorhees. And in doing so, I brought my awesome Friday the 13th Part 3 3D sunglasses, baby. Now, when I say ranking Jason Voorhees, I mean all the actors that have portrayed the character of Jason Voorhees throughout the Friday the 13th franchise, which is one of the longest running horror series of all time. And in doing so, I want to say I don't think there have ever been any bad portrayals of Jason Voorhees per se, but I do think there are some that are better than others, some that have done a more effective job of portraying the character of Jason Voorhees than others. With that being said, let's get to it, shall we? The first one at number 10 is Ari Lehmann, from the original Friday the 13th from 1980, the original classic that started it all. Now, the reason Ari Lehmann ranks so low is because he only has like a minute of screen time. But he does the job well, it's just that we don't see enough of him. We only see him in two scenes. One is like a flashback dream sequence where we see him drowning in Camp Crystal Lake. And then again at the big jump scare at the end there where he, spoiler alert, jumps up from the bottom of the lake and pulls down Alice from her canoe there into the water. And that's it. That's all we see of him. So that's why he ranks so low. Number 9 is going to be Warrenton Gillette from Friday the 13th Part 2. Now, Warrenton Gillette gets a lot of the credit for portraying Jason in Friday the 13th Part 2, even though he really only was in one scene towards the end there when Jason jumps through the window and grabs Ginny, you know. It's a great scene, and that's the only scene in the movie where you get to see, like, his face. But other than that, Steve Dash plays all the scenes as Jason in Friday the 13th Part 2 with the mask, with the bag sack over his head. And he does all the stunts and he does all the hard work, but he didn't get all the credit, you know. So that's why Warrenton Gillette ranks so low. Next up is going to be Tom Morga from Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. So Tom Morga portrays Jason really only in a few scenes because Jason really isn't in this movie all too much, only in dream sequences where Tommy Jarvis is dreaming and seeing Jason in his dreams about to kill him. That's when Tom Morga portrays the character of Jason Voorhees. Tom Morga also portrays the character of Roy Burns in the movie as well, but I don't want to get into all the details of that. There's a Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, is kind of considered the black sheep of the franchise for a reason, you know, but we won't get into that. Next up is Ken Kirzinger from Freddy vs. Jason. Now, originally, it was said that Kane Hodder wanted to portray the character of Jason once again in Freddy vs. Jason, but they never really even contacted him to do so, which is kind of strange because he portrayed the character 4 times in the 4 previous films. But at any rate, you know, I guess they wanted to go for a little different kind of take on Jason. They wanted him to be more of a lumbering kind of Frankenstein's monster type character for this film. And I feel like it worked. It worked well. And I think Ken Kirzinger did a fine job in the role of Jason in this film. And I really enjoyed the film, and I enjoy his performance. He's certainly probably the biggest Jason. You know, he's a monster. He's huge. So yeah, Ken Kirzinger in at number 7. And in at number 6 is Richard Brooker from Friday the 13th Part 3. I feel like Richard Brooker's portrayal in Friday the 13th Part 3 really set the standard of what Jason should be, you know. The type of character that Jason Voorhees should be. I feel like he really set the standard for all others after him to follow. So yeah, Richard Brooker set the standard. I feel like others took it to another level, but he set the standard, I feel, as Jason. Number 5 is going to be Steve Dash, or Steve Daskowitz, who played Jason in Friday the 13th Part 2, which is such an amazing sequel. Where I said Richard Brooker kind of set the standard of what Jason was to become, I feel like Steve Daskowitz did such an excellent job physically in the role of. He went through a lot of physical demands in that film. He even took a shot in the hand from the machete from Ginny, you know. Wow. Yeah. Amy Steele even told me that herself. She said that she did clip him with the machete right in his hand. And he had to be rushed to the hospital. So yeah, Steve Dash did a lot of heavy work in Friday the 13th Part 2, and I think he does a fantastic job. He's very scary. I love the look of Jason in Friday the 13th Part 2, even though it's a lot different than the later entries. And yeah, Friday the 13th Part 2 is certainly one of my favorites. So yeah, in at number 5 is Steve Dash. So in at number 4 is going to be Kane Hodder. Certainly the most popular actor to portray the role of Jason Voorhees throughout the franchise, absolutely. Why? Probably because he played Jason 4 times. In Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood, which is probably my favorite portrayal that Kane Hodder did as Jason. Then Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Then Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, but even that wasn't the final Friday. And then Jason X, when Jason goes to space. So unfortunately, Kane Hodder was in, I feel, the 4 worst films in the franchise, but that's just my opinion. A lot of people love those films, but I really don't care for them that much. But I do think that Kane Hodder was a very good Jason. He was really menacing. He was very intimidating. He's a big dude, and he has a commanding presence on the screen. He gives that hulking look and that, you know, the heavy breathing, and he looks like a monster, you know, that's going to rip your face right off. So that's one of the things I really like about Kane Hodder's portrayal. Next up, number 3 is Derek Mears from the remake of Friday the 13th from 2009. That's my favorite part about the remake, is Derek Mears' portrayal of Jason Voorhees and the way the character of Jason Voorhees was handled in the Friday the 13th remake from 2009. That's easily my favorite part about it. I think he brings such a great gravitas to the role of Jason Voorhees. He's got a lot going on. This is a much smarter version of Jason Voorhees, a much more resourceful version. He's just deadly, and he has deadly survival skills. He knows how to survive out there in the woods, and we see that. And I just love that about him. And yeah, Derek Mears, once again, is a big, huge dude, you know. Very intimidating, and he moves quickly, very quickly, you know, as opposed to some of the other Jasons, like Kane Hodder is very slow moving, Ken Kirzinger was very slow moving, but Derek Mears was quite spry in the role of Jason Voorhees. That's because this version of Jason is a lot more human than the others. He's a much more human take on the character of Jason. Number 2 is going to be Ted White, who played Jason in Friday the 13th, Part 4, The Final Chapter, which was not the final chapter, even though it was supposed to be. But yeah, most people pick Ted White as the best Jason in the entire franchise. Actually, probably that's not true. A lot of people pick Kane Hodder, but definitely Ted White is a lot of people's picks. And rightfully so. He does an absolutely fantastic job. I think he's probably the scariest Jason in the franchise. Yes, and he has the best makeup job. The entire franchise, when when they show his face and stuff, sick as hell. And he's very intimidating, very like brooding, hulking, and scary. He's really determined to get Corey Feldman's character. He's relentless, absolutely relentless. So yeah, that's why Ted White is in at number 2. Now who's left but number 1? And for me, that is C.J. Graham in the role of Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. Certainly the most fun entry in the entire franchise for me. And I feel like C.J. Graham was the absolute perfect definition of the character of Jason Voorhees. I feel like it just nailed it right on the head. Absolutely perfect. He had the perfect look of Jason, the perfect portrayal of Jason. He's got the perfect mannerisms for the character. He just is amazing in the role of Jason. To me, he's just picture perfect. That's what Jason should be, 100%. It's like he watched all who played him before and took the best parts of each portrayal from everyone who had played Jason in the whole franchise and just melded them all together to play one perfect edition of Jason Voorhees for the Friday the 13th franchise. So yeah, for me guys, it's C.J. Graham in at number 1 from Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. And thank you guys so much for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, in the Horror Corner for ranking Jason Voorhees. Now, if you guys want to do a response with your top 10 portrayals of Jason Voorhees, feel free to do so, or say your ranking in the comments below. And tune in and stay scared.